Welcome to Warriors Latest. As always, I am your host, Max Arizin. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoy the show today, as I do post new Warriors videos daily. Now, everybody's back. We've seen everybody has returned to practice. We've got our roster rounded out. And I'm not going to lie, after seeing the interviews from Coach Kerr and several of the other players, at least I got a vote of confidence to start out. Now, specifically with Coach Kerr. Now, like Steph said the other day going into Media Day, business is business when it comes to the NBA, and the same thing was said about Coach Kerr because he talked about Jonathan Kuminga a lot during his interview process after the first practice, and he was talking about, hey, I have an opportunity for Jonathan Kuminga to fit into the offense, but I don't believe that it's personal that my name was mentioned in negotiations over and over and over again. Because you know what? In negotiations, things can get dirty. Now, he admits that, you know what? Times were tough last year, and he couldn't find a way to fit him in. But with the way the roster is now, he believes that, you know what? He's going to figure out a way to work with Kuminga and make him a better player. But he also talked about having a full offseason with Jimmy going into training camp and maintaining that energy of where they were last 31 games of the season going into the Rockets postseason in the series and then going against the Timberwolves. And they want to maintain that energy. And while he talked about, all right, they lost Looney, they also brought a lot of guys in that helped with the spacing. Now, he didn't specifically mention Al Horford, but that's pretty much who he was talking about because he did mention he never had a center who really knew how to shoot threes and sort of made a name for himself shooting threes. I mean, we think about today in the NBA, we think about Al Horford, at least in the last 5 to 10 years, in terms of three-point shooting centers, we think of Al Horford, and then we think of Brook Lopez. Now, we can say, all right, we have Kristaps Porzingis. He's a three-point shooting big, but not to the same degree as, say, Horford or Brook Lopez. So there is like something to be said about that because you think about it. Their centers have been Kevon Looney, Andrew Bogut, Zaza Pachulia, and maybe a little bit of DeMarcus Cousins when he still had a little bit left in the tank. So he's never really had a guy who can space the floor the way Horford does. Now, did he talk about Horford's advanced age? He mentioned age overall as something that brings them together. And I mean that in the sense that's like I've mentioned before in previous videos, these are all guys with the same mindset. They've won at the highest levels before, and they know what it takes to get back to the promised land. Horford has been to the title twice, winning once in 2024. Jimmy's been there twice, losing both times in 23 and in 2020. Obviously, Steph and Draymond have been there 6 times. So that general core knows what they're doing. And on top of that, guys like Pods and Moody Moody and Kuminga have been to the promised land in their rookie year with the Warriors. Now, there are going to be other guys that are going to need to step up their game, including Moody, including Pods, and most importantly, Quentyn Post, because now that they're fully integrated year in and year out, they have to embrace a bigger role coming off the bench. And I think he specifically talked about Quentyn Post. Now, Quentyn Post is a guy who shot 40% from 3 during his rookie year. He's definitely going to have to keep that up. But is he really going to make that next jump, especially in his sophomore year? Now, we know a lot of guys have a sophomore slump, and that always affects them in the worst way. I've seen many times where they hit a wall that they had a solid rookie season, but they're hitting that wall that they would have hit their rookie season during their sophomore season or their second year, however you may want to put it. Now, do I see this happening in Post? It's 50-50. Now, yes, he is a young guy who shot well last year. He still is the only 7-footer on the roster, so a lot is going to be expected of him. But I think there's a lot to be learned now, at least after hearing what he had to say, from him learning from Horford, improving his shot, learning how to be a better 7-footer from a guy who's just really been physical with some of the best centers in the league, dating to his getting drafted back in 2007. So think about it. He's messed with Duncan. He's messed with Shaq. He's messed with Jokic. He's messed with Anthony Davis. Like all these great big men. Dirk Nowitzki. He's messed with all of them. I think back, like even prime Serge Ibaka. There's another one. But he's messed with all these big men. And I think there's a lot to be said for Quentyn Post really taking a step forward. Now, again, he may hit that sophomore slump, but it's still 50-50. And to his credit, to Quentyn Post's credit, and I just learned about this today, he won a chess blitz championship in Vegas over the summer. And I'm not going to lie. Any NBA player that does well in chess gives me a great vote of confidence because chess is a real thinking man's game. You have to know your spots, know what your opponent is thinking at least 5 or 6 moves ahead before they even thought of it. Like see the domino effect of what one move may make in the long term. And I think that bodes well for Quentyn Post because he's going to be going up against guys that know the center position much better than he does. And based off him being smart and using chess moves, he may be able to outsmart some of his more seasoned opponents, the likes of like Rudy Gobert, drawing him out to the three-point line and using him as a distraction to allow Jimmy and Kuminga to attack the basket. He may be smart enough to get the better of Joker, even Anthony Davis, definitely DeAndre Ayton. So I really hope that this, mentor-mentee relationship between him and Horford goes well as the season progresses, because as the season goes on, Horford's minutes are going to get less and less as they sort of ramp him down and set him up for the playoffs, and Post will get a lot more playing time come February, should he still be with the team, and really start to evolve his game and show that he isn't just a big guy they drafted out of Boston College. So I want to see that evolve well, and hopefully he could take what he's learned from chess and transfer it to the NBA. But while the good news was there, I saw some more annoying news as well coming out of the first few days of practice, and that's DeAnthony Melton. We just signed him to a 2-year deal, granted with a player option, and what happens? He has to reevaluate his ACL because he's still rehabbing it from last year. And it makes me wonder, what was the point of signing him if he was injured? I looked it up. Seth Curry has an Exhibit 9 contract, which basically means they're going to cut him at the end of training camp most likely, unless they trade a player and then bring him on a minimum contract. Now, if you're giving a guaranteed contract to a guy who's injured over a player who isn't, I don't get it. Because, yes, Melton, a bit younger, faster player than Seth, but Seth hit 45% from 3 last year. Enough said. Like, Melton is coming off the bench, and so is Seth. And Seth can hit it for over 40% from 3. He's a sniper. I'd rather have the sniper than the guy with janky knees. So it's frustrating when you hear news like that. You assume when a team is signing a player, he's fully healthy. He has to pass his physical. He's still rehabbing his ACL, gets it reevaluated in 4 weeks. In 4 weeks, we're going to be probably, first 2 weeks of the season in? That's not exactly where you want a guy who's supposed to be a critical bench piece to be 2 weeks into the season. So it's just really, really annoying to see. Who knows? Maybe they end up cutting Melton because Seth has such a good preseason. But the bottom line is there's a long time between now and opening night. And as much as Coach Kerr likes this roster, as much as Quentyn Post is ready to embrace a larger role with the team, A lot can happen from now to opening night. And that's all really going to depend on how practices go, how the preseason plays out, and how guys capitalize on their preseason opportunities. And I definitely see some guys capitalizing more than others, and so other guys who may have been here for a lot longer, playing their way off the roster and then getting traded, maybe to save some cash while also bringing in a valuable supplemental player that will help them for this season and maybe next. So I look forward to seeing what happens, but then again, we got a long way to go until opening night. Now, that's all we have today for Warriors Latest. As always, if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you think of any guys that you want to see surprise you during training camp and preseason, feel free to comment below, as I'd love to hear your suggestions and see what they can do when you really pay attention to how they affect the game. And as always, go Dubs.